Thank you, Jean, for being here and for all that you've done for West Virginia. I know I'm supposed to be looking toward the future, but I want to take a minute and tell a little bit of a personal story. Bear with me, I know it just got a whole lot hotter, so I'll try to make it short. I lost my grandfather this week. He was the only grandparent I ever had, but I didn't really get to know him until I was an adult. He was 91. He had 6 daughters and 20 grandchildren, so he rarely used any of our names. He just called us daughter or granddaughter or by the end just woman. It was mostly over baseball that we bonded. He had grown up a Tigers fan in the 30s and would sneak into games as a kid, although after 40 years in Ohio, he switched allegiance to the Indians. I'm a die-hard Red Sox fan, as our staff will attest to, and the only time he ever called me in my life was to taunt me before the 2007 ALCS between the Indians and Red Sox. I'm pretty sure his message started with the words, "We're gonna kick your..." fill in the blank. The Red Sox won it all that year, in case you don't remember. My grandfather was a member of what's been called the Greatest Generation. He was a bomber pilot in World War II, flew B-26s over Germany. 39 missions, including the Battle of the Bulge. There was no Air Force then, so he was in the Army Air Corps. He turned 19 in October of 1941, got married in November, and when Pearl Harbor was attacked in December, he joined up the next day, leaving behind his already pregnant wife. When I saw him last week, just before he died, he was telling me about the ship he came home from World War II on. He's never been on a ship since, that's how bad it was. He said there were at least 6 bunks against each wall with about 2 feet of clearance, and that you really had to hope that the guy above you hadn't had beans for dinner. He told me how many crew he had on his plane and each of their names and where they sat. There were times when he talked about the war, and you could see that it was hard for him. And yet, even at the end of his life, some 70 years later, it was clear that it was the defining experience of his life. He had not hesitated for a second before he signed up to fight, because that's just what you did. You served your country, and you didn't whine, and you didn't complain, and even decades later, you were proud of what you'd done. When I moved to West Virginia 4 years ago, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I had never set foot in the state in my life, but I certainly knew the statistics about where West Virginia ranks on any given measure. I'm sure, like me, you're sick of hearing those numbers and all the stereotypes that follow them. So let me tell you something positive about West Virginia that I found. It's that the spirit of sacrifice of the Greatest Generation is alive and well here. It's family after family I've met where 4 or 5 generations have served in the military. It's the church volunteers that keep coming to my 88-year-old neighbor's house to make sure he's okay, to bring him meals, and at least once to paint his roof. It's the complete absence of hesitation when someone's in trouble and somebody's got to look after their kids. Maybe for a day or 2, maybe forever. Of course you say yes. You always say yes. That is what I have found in West Virginia. So I was supposed to get up here and talk about the next 20 years of AmeriCorps, and what I think it can accomplish, and how much bigger and better national service can be. And I believe that it can, but I'm going to take that one step further and offer a challenge for all of us. I'm going to say that your service isn't just about what you accomplished this year. While we're going to make you count how many people you helped or how many volunteers you find, I'm going to argue that your impact is much bigger than that. It's about spreading the ethic of service. It's about standing up in front of people and saying, I am willing to help. It's about leading by example, so that in 40 years or 70 years, or however many you've got left, you can look back and say, what I did was worthwhile. I served. In 2013, General Stanley McChrystal proposed a plan to make some form of national service available to anyone who wants to serve. He proposed making AmeriCorps or the Peace Corps available to anyone, rather than just a fraction of those who apply. He also acknowledged how indebted we are to that 1% who serve in our military, and how that will continue to be an important option for those who choose to serve. He pointed out that President Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, expected all citizens to be engaged in our democracy. During World War II, everyone on the home front did their part. Victory gardens, air raid patrols, scrap metal drives. But at some point along the way, somehow the message became it's okay to opt out of civic life, to do your own thing, to not take part in whatever your community is up to. So let's change that message. Let's make the message opt-in. Let's take up General McChrystal's objective of triggering a cultural shift that makes service an expected right of citizenship. This is something that West Virginia can be the leader in, because we're already doing it. Let's keep it up. As we move on to the pledge, I would say that to me, the 4 most important words in the pledge are this year and beyond. I hope that this is one of many steps in a lifelong commitment to community service, regardless of the job that you choose. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the Secretary of Education and the Arts, Kay Goodwin, a longtime friend of service in West Virginia, to administer the AmeriCorps pledge to members and alum and anyone else who wants to take it on this very special 20th anniversary.
Yes.